there, the extrinsic motivator versus the intrinsic desires, the manipulation. Wow. In Toastmasters, we're certainly encouraged to recognize achievement. And this brings up, Justin's talk brings up questions of, are we manipulating in doing so? Certainly a lot of things to think about. Why don't you take about 30 seconds to write a sentence or two to Justin before we go to our next speaker. Okay, our second speaker is Mike Kinner. He is working from the Interpretive Reading Advanced Manual. He will be doing project number 5, which is the oratorical speech. He has cut it down to be a 5 to 7 minute speech. It's normally longer than that. But the objectives are to understand the structure of an effective speech and to interpret and present a famous speech. It doesn't really tell you much of what's in the write-up here about it, but the point is that by understanding the structure, you will understand the delivery that is necessary in order to put it across. His speech, I did the same thing again. Brought my notes up here, put them where I wouldn't see. All right. Mike says that he'll be interpreting and presenting a speech given in 1933 by William Lyon Phelps. Phelps was an American educator, a literary critic, and an author. He was professor of English at Yale from 1901 until 1933, so he had a long career, 33 years there. On April 6th, 1933, he delivered this speech, the one that Mike will be giving, during a radio broadcast. Somewhat ironically, a month later in Germany, the Nazis staged a book burning, something out of the Middle Ages, something you hadn't seen since then, of books with un-German ideas. The title of the oratorical speech that Mike will be interpreting today is The Pleasure of Books. 5 to 7 minutes, The Pleasure of Books. Please welcome Mike.
The habit of reading is one of the greatest resources of mankind. And we enjoy reading books that belong to us much more than if they're borrowed. You see, a borrowed book is like a guest in the house. It must be treated with punctiliousness, with a certain considerate formality. You must see that it sustains no damage. It must not suffer while under your roof. You cannot leave it carelessly. You cannot mark it. You cannot turn down the pages, and you cannot treat it familiarly. And then someday, although this is seldom done, you really ought to return it. But your own books belong to you. You treat them with that affectionate intimacy that annihilates formality. Books are for use, not for show. You should own no book that you're afraid to mark up or afraid to place on the table, face down on your table. A good reason for marking favorite passages in books is that this practice enables you to remember more easily the significant sayings, to refer to them quickly, and then in later years, it's like visiting a forest where you once blazed a trail. You have the pleasure of going over the old ground and recalling both the intellectual scenery and your own earlier self. Everyone should begin collecting a private library in youth. The instinct of private property, which is fundamental in human beings, can here be cultivated with every advantage and no evils. One should have one's own bookshelves, which should not have doors, glass windows, or keys. They should be free and accessible to the hand as well as to the eye. The best of mural decorations is books. They are more varied in color and appearance than any wallpaper. They are more attractive in design, and they have the prime advantage of being separate personalities, so that if you sit alone in the room with the firelight, you are surrounded with intimate friends. The knowledge that they are there in plain view is both stimulating and refreshing. Don't worry, you don't have to read them all. Most of my indoor life is spent in a room containing 6,000 books. And I have a stock answer to the invariable question that comes from strangers. Have you read all these books? Some of them twice. This reply is both true and unexpected. There are, of course, no friends like living, breathing, corporeal men and women. My devotion to reading has never made me a recluse. How could it? Books are of the people, by the people, and for the people. Literature is the immortal part of people, of human history. It is the best and most enduring part of personality. But book friends have this advantage over living friends. You can enjoy the most truly aristocratic society in the world whenever you want it. The great dead are beyond our physical reach, and sometimes the great living are usually just as accessible. As for our personal friends and acquaintances, we cannot always see them. Perchance they're asleep or they're away on a journey. But in a private library, you can at any moment converse with Socrates, or Shakespeare, or Carlyle, or Dumas, or Dickens, or Shaw, or Barry, or Galsworth. And there's no doubt that in these books, you see these men at their best. They wrote for you. They laid themselves out. They did their ultimate best to entertain you, to make a favorable impression. You are necessary to them just as an audience is necessary for an actor. Only instead of seeing the actor masked, you see the author's innermost heart of hearts. That's masturbation.